What do you desire? Money and wealth? Honor and pride? Authority and power? Revenge? Or something that transcends all these? Whatever you desire is here. Welcome to Tower of God. With these words, SIU welcomes us to the story of his masterpiece, which is Tower of God. A story with so much history and lore behind it that it technically starts thousands of years before our main characters are even born. As such, I wanted to make a new series here on my YouTube channel, going through the most major events in chronological order. Which really is not as easy as I thought, because as I mentioned, the story of Tower of God technically started thousands of years before Baam even entered the tower. There's so much information that it's hard to keep track of. Heck, I read through the Webtoon twice and still spent hours on the wiki page, which is why I decided to try and summarize all the major events within the tower in my new series, The History of Tower of God. But to do so, I will first have to go through a few terms used within the tower, so I will do just that in this video. I will explain a few terms used within the tower to give you a better understanding of what the hell is even going on, as well as having something to reference to in my future videos. Anyway, don't forget to like and subscribe, and now let's dive into a story of a masterpiece. The Tower of God story takes place inside a giant tower which exists somewhere in the Tales user universe. Next to nothing is known about the world outside the tower, and the story begins thousands of years ago with the creation of a mysterious tower. But instead of thinking of the tower as a single structure, it's better to imagine the tower as its own gigantic world, with 135 confirmed floors, each divided into 3 sections: the inner tower, the outer tower, and the middle area. The inner tower is the place where regulars take tests to climb the tower. Regulars must pass all the tests on a floor to gain the right to go up to the next floor. The only exception is on the 43rd floor, but we will get to that once we reach the floor of death. Regulars who fail on the 2nd floor or give up climbing the tower before they have reached the 20th floor are stripped of their rights and are sent back to the outer tower. The outer tower is the residential district of the tower, and each floor of the outer tower is as large as the American continents. There exist cultures on many floors on the outer tower unaware of the existence of the inner tower or even the king of the tower. As such, these cultures have subsequently formed their own nations with monarchs. The middle area is an area between the inner and outer section. It can be used to travel between the inner and outer tower. Both regulars and rankers can live in the middle area. However, regulars only earn the right of living there by themselves or with their family members once they have reached the 20th floor. Each floor has its own guardian or administrator. Administrators have existed from ancient times and may be as old as the tower itself. They are mysterious beings and are considered the gods of the tower. Their duty used to be to give tests to those who climb the tower. No administrator can leave their floor, with the exception of the administrator on the 1st floor, Hidden. Administrators have complete control and rule over the Shinsu of their floor. Shinsu, meaning divine water, is the life energy for every living being inside the tower. Shinsu is everywhere and has no limit. It can be manipulated or controlled to attack or to strengthen your body. The flow of Shinsu determines its qualities, allowing it to be as water, fire, light. It can basically be whatever the user wants. Shinsu has no singular property or feature, and is rather the very basis of all energy and things within the tower. Shinsu is not something which a person has, rather it is produced by the tower and is everywhere in different densities. In order to manipulate a certain amount of Shinsu directly within a floor, a contract with the administrator of the floor must be made. The basic unit of Shinsu manipulation is called bang. The size of the bang is called myun, and the density of Shinsu that goes into a bang is called so. It is said that high rankers can control 30 to 50 bangs. Side note, the person who can control the largest number of bangs is the Irregular Enryu with over 9,000 bangs.
Vegeta, what does the scouter say about his power level? It's over 9,000! Wrong.
Anyway, by now you probably wonder what a regular and irregular is. As I mentioned earlier, Hidden is the only administrator who can fully move around the tower. While traveling throughout the floors of the tower, he selects the people that catch his eye. These selected people are then classified as regulars. A regular is an individual who is permitted to climb the tower. Regulars begin on the 2nd floor and proceed to climb the tower from there. Once they have passed the 20th floor, they receive certain benefits. Anyway, while a regular is climbing the tower, they have to pass one or more tests on each floor. The tests are created to determine whether the regular is worthy of going to the next floor. Generally, the difficulty increases the higher one climbs. If a regular reaches the 134th floor, they become a ranker. Rankers are those individuals who have reached the 134th floor and have been given a rank. This rank is issued by the Ranking Administration Office and is calculated after investigating and combining statistics such as a person's power, recognition and influence. Out of these rankers, the top 1000 are classified as high rankers, which is roughly 1% of rankers. Rankers and high rankers are technically forbidden from associating or rather interfering with regulars. However, this rule has been broken many times throughout the story, without any real consequences. I just thought I should mention it. So, yeah. Anyway, an irregular is someone who was not selected from within the tower through Heden's normal selection of regulars, but someone who entered the 1st floor from outside the tower. An irregular is one who was able to enter the tower on their own by whatever means or for whatever reasons. This grants irregulars certain benefits, such as the ability to use Shinsu without the need of a contract with an administrator. Strictly speaking, the first known irregulars were Zahard and his companions. And while nowadays a lot of tests involve fighting other regulars, when Zahard and the Great Warriors climbed the tower, they had to fight creatures known as Shinheuh. Shinheuh are the creatures encountered in the tower. The original positions were created by Zahard and the Great Warriors in their initial climb through the tower in order to find the Shinheuh. This implies that originally nearly all the tests needed to climb the tower involve fighting Shinheuh rather than other people. Positions are the individual roles a person in a team takes on in battle. The battles in the tower are mostly fought as a team, and the position of an individual is the role they play in a team. There are 5 basic positions as well as a couple special positions. The 5 basic positions are Fisherman. A fisherman generally possesses the most destructive power. They directly attack the enemies. The position is suited for close to medium range fighters, and they are the main offense of the team. SIU once mentioned in a blog post that if positions fought each other, the fishermen would usually win. Spearbearer. Spearbearers act like snipers for the team, throwing their spear to attack from long to short range with deadly accuracy, but they can also serve a purpose similar to the fishermen by using their spear like a staff for close combat. Scouts. Scouts are usually the first ones to encounter the enemy. As they move ahead of the group, observe the environment and situation. Scout is a position in which mental strength is very important, so someone who possesses weak mental strength can't be a scout. They collect data about the environment and enemies, which then transfer the gathered information back to the Lightbearers. Lightbearers are responsible for gathering, storing and delivering crucial knowledge to their teammates while guiding them with the light of their lighthouse. Lightbearers are usually the most support-oriented position. Think of them as the strategists. Wave Controller. Wave Controllers specialize in manipulating Shinsu for their attacks. Out of all the 5 basic positions, Wave Controller is the rarest. And now on to the special positions. As I mentioned, there are several special positions, but I will only talk about 2, Anima and Guides. Guides are considered a special position, but they don't play a real role in combat. Guides lead their team towards the best path to success, usually with their ability to see into the future and excellent analytical skills. Within the tower there are 2 species with the ability to guide, the Silver Dwarfs and the Red Witches. It is a very rare position and they are considered blessed by the tower. Anima. Unlike many other special positions, it's not a skill that anyone can learn, but instead requires natural talent. An anima refers to someone who can control Shinheuh and other creatures. Side note, the head of the Po Bia family is considered the best anima in the tower. It is said that he can control all Shinheuh and animals of the tower, as well as humans. Now I will talk more about Zahard and the family heads in a future video. However, there are at least 2 things I still want to talk about today. One of these things are creatures known as the Native Ones. Long ago, even before Zahard and his companions entered the tower, there was once a giant in the tower who split himself into 5 beings, each with the power to control the elements of the tower, and each were known as the Native One. Native Ones are beings that are able to rule over the elements in the tower. And the last thing I want to talk about today is probably the most influential organization within the tower, an organization known as the Workshop. The Workshop is an independent organization, not ruled by Zahard. One may think that this kind of existence may threaten the power and balance of the tower's rulers, but this is not the case. This is because the Workshop have absolutely no interest in the tower's power struggles and politics. The Workshop also exists outside the tower, and no one knows its origin. Its ultimate goal is to find the order and reason of all creation in the world, and by doing so, to know how to recreate all such creation and with that become a god of all creation. Majesty has the highest rank within the Workshop. He was present in the tower before Zahard and the Great Warriors entered the tower and was critical in helping them climb the tower. It can be said that almost everything that can be called science in the tower originates from him. He is the creator of many inventions, including devices known as pockets. A pocket enables the wearer to understand the different languages spoken in the tower. It also functions as a phone, wallet, diary, and many other things. Majesty is also the creator of the strongest weapon, the White Ore, which is currently the only S+ rank weapon inside the tower. It is owned by Arie Hon, the strongest of the 10 great family heads. The 13 months were also created by a member of the Workshop. However, that is a story for another time. Tens of thousands of years ago, an adventurer, along with his 12 companions, entered the tower. They were greeted by the caretaker of the tower and started their climb. Their story would later be referred to as the Great Journey. The story of Zahard's climb to become the king of the tower is probably my favorite thing within the Tower of God universe, but for as much as we know, there's still so much we don't know. So join me as we look through all the currently available information of events that led to Zahard becoming the king of the tower, in part 2 of my Tower of God history series. And as always, don't forget to like and subscribe, and let's get started with the Great Journey. Now, before I begin, I briefly want to talk about Zahard and his 12 companions. So here are some brief character descriptions so that you know who I'm even talking about. Arie Hon. Arie Hon is renowned as the strongest of the great warriors. He is an outstanding swordsman who has no problem wielding a sword even in high density of Shinsu, due to his mysterious style of swordsmanship that is said to be impossible to describe in words. Khun Edwan. Khun Edwan is famous for his lewdness, and he is the man with the most wives among the 10 family heads. Edwan is known for taking delight in fighting. He is also extremely proud and self-confident. Ha Yurin. Ha Yurin was the first person to hold the scout position in the tower. It is said that she possesses a very aggressive and bold personality, so among the great warriors she would often be the one to fight in the front lines of battle. It is said that she was the first to use Shinsu to strengthen one's body in battle. Tuperi Perier is the first light bearer in the tower's history. Tuperi Perier became one of the most active family heads and is known to have created many items. Eurasia Blossom. Blossom has the appearance of a young child and loves flamboyant clothes. She has a lazy personality, which she has been called out on by other family heads. Blossom and Gustan were lovers for a short period of time, but split after the infamous Eurasia Ain Zahard incident, which we will talk about in more detail in a future video. Po Bia Gustan. Po Bia Gustan is the first living being to systematically record Shinsu. He is the tower's most famous wave controller and writer. Excluding the eccentrics within the Workshop, he probably knows the most about the tower. Hendolak Blood Matter. Hendolak Blood Matter is a 13-meter tall giant. He takes on a unique role, known as the Defender, which is the role of protecting spear bearers and light bearers. The combination of Blood Matter and Khun Edwan was known to be the most powerful combination and extremely difficult to stop. V was more and more interested in the residents of the tower as he kept trying to get closer to ordinary people. Edwan said that he had a completely opposite personality from Zahard. V is an affectionate name given to him by Aline Grace. Aline got along with all great warriors. It is said that she had the ability to use mysterious spells. Aline was also very interested in the residents of the tower. Yeon Hana. Hana is known to be the most beautiful among the great warriors. She has a gentle personality, which is rare among the 10 family heads, and treats both man and woman kindly. Though she has a gentle personality, Yeon Hana is the scariest woman when angry, according to the 10 family heads. Arie Hon. The Arie family has a close connection to the Arie family, and while Arie Hon is known for his swordsmanship, Arie Hon uses needles to fight. He as well as the entire Arie family are known to do whatever it takes to prevent wars. Po Bia family head. I already talked briefly about the Po Bia family head in part 1 of the series. He is considered the best anima in the tower. It is said that he can control all Shinheuh and animals of the tower, as well as humans. He is also the most loyal of the 10 family heads to Zahard. Zahard was once a more noble and good person. He was the strongest fisherman and was in love with Aline Grace. Zahard has always been a fan of adventures, so he and his closest companions entered the tower looking for just that, an adventure. And when they entered the tower, they were greeted by the administrator of the first floor, Eden. It is said that Zahard and his companions had slightly different tests than we have now, as they had to fight the Shinheuh of the tower in order to advance to the higher floors. During this time they came up with positions to fight the Shinheuh in a more efficient way. These positions are still being used to this day and refer to the 5 basic positions: Fisherman, Spearbearer, Scouts, Lightbearer and Wave Controller. Sometime after they started their climb, they met with direct descendants of the native ones and continued their journey with them as new companions. It is also said that sometime during their climb they met with the people of the workshop. The people of the workshop were very interested in the great warriors and their knowledge from the outside. The member from the workshop, Ashul Edwaru, interviewed the great warriors to learn more about the outside and created a book called Of the Tower's Weapons. Most of the contents of the book are currently unknown, except for a fragment that serves as the introduction for the book. It is stated that all the weapons used in the tower were modeled after the weapons that Zahard and the Great Warriors brought along with them to the tower. According to the Great Warriors, there is no Shinsu outside the tower. Quoting from the book, surprisingly there is no Shinsu in their world and something called air fills the world instead. Since there is no Shinsu outside the tower, the weapons had to be developed and modified to suit the properties of Shinsu. To help the Great Warriors train, the workshop created a special training place. This training place is called the Hell Train. The Hell Train is an express train that serves as a shortcut. The route of the Hell Train starts from the 35th floor until the 44th floor. On this Hell Train exist artificial life forms known as Guardians. They were in charge of testing the Great Warriors while they were on the train. These Guardians were created by the workshop and their leader is referred to as the God of Guardians. The God of Guardians trained Zahard and the Great Warriors in a place called the Rice Pot. The God of Guardians and the Rice Pot inside the Hell Train exist to give revolution to those that opened the door to the tower themselves. Revolution refers to finding their true self that is unrelated to society, ideologies and others. It is said that when Zahard talked to the God of Guardians, he wished for power to make everyone in the tower happy. It is also stated that at this point, Zahard started to change. When he underwent revolution, he started to think that he had to use his power to stand above the others to be able to change them. The God of Guardians also fought the Great Warriors' Shinsu manipulation and body reinforcement techniques. Once the Great Warriors cleared the Hell Train, they got access to the Hidden Floor. The Hidden Floor is a virtual area, as large as a real floor, located inside the Hell Train. There they could record their name along with a trace of their current self. This data and their personal detail remain in the system on the train as artificial intelligence, and Zahard and his companions continued their climb. While continuing their climb, the Great Warriors got closer to each other and the people of the tower and started having children. Ha-Yurin had twin daughters with another Great Warrior, Arie Hon. Aline and Vi also got closer to each other and started a relationship. While continuing their climb, they met many different people. One of them was Grace Mashaya Laslek. It is stated that he was the big supporter of Vi and that he later became a warlord serving under Vi. He also helped the Great Warriors in their climb. Once Zahard and the Great Warriors completed the test on the 100th floor, they were granted the gift of immortality by the administrator. However, two of the Great Warriors, namely Vi and Hendolok Blood Matter, were not granted immortality. The reason why they were excluded has not been revealed yet. Blood Matter begged the administrator for a way to receive eternal life, and the administrator decided to offer it under one condition. If you give your children and your children's children the curse of a short life, you alone will be able to live an eternal life through the life you have taken from them. Although at first conflicted, Hendo could not overcome his fear of death and accepted the administrator's conditions. Now all those born under Blood Matter are cursed with a short life. I should probably mention that a short life in the tower is roughly 100 years, and it may be longer for rankers. Unsurprisingly, this condition led to Hendolok Blood Matter having the most children of the Great Warriors. While climbing the tower, the great warriors and especially Zahard gained a lot of respect and admiration from the people of the tower. They were already considered gods at this point. And now we have reached the last talking point for today, and that is on floor 135. Up to this point, Zahard and the Great Warriors conquered every floor in the tower with the exception of the first floor. However, it is said that the administrator of the 135th floor is extremely hostile and nobody has been able to defeat it or pass its tests, which led to Zahard announcing that he will stop climbing the tower and declaring himself as the king of the tower. He split the key of the tower that would open the door leading to higher floors into 2 parts, so that no one could go beyond the 134th floor. He gave the first part of the key to Ashul Edwaru, who melted it and turned it into the 13-month series, so that the key would be shared between Zahard and his 12 companions. The other half of the key was melted into several crimson rings with the crest of Zahard. These rings were handed to children whose existence was meant to be kept hidden alongside the rings. Arlene and Vi were heavily against the idea of Zahard becoming the king of the tower and sealing the key to the next floor. Vi and Arlene, who wanted to keep climbing the tower, criticized Zahard's decision, as they believed that Zahard was blinded by falsehood. Despite their protests, Zahard became the king by making a deal with the administrators. Arlene and Vi formed an organization to oppose Zahard with the main goal of liberating the key in his possession. The two opposing forces fought each other for a long time, a time which would later be referred to as the Age of Genesis. In part 2 of my Tower of God history series, I talked about Zahard's journey to declaring himself as the king of the tower. Once he reached the 134th floor, he announced that he would stop climbing the tower. He split the key to the next floor in 2, giving one half to the blacksmith Ashul Edwaru, who melted the key into 13 weapons, meant for Zahard and his 12 companions, making it impossible for anyone to reach the 135th floor, which didn't sit well with some of his companions. They gathered allies and tried to get the key from Zahard, and a war which would later be referred to as the Age of Genesis began. So join me as we look through the horrifying events known as the Age of Genesis in part 3 of my Tower of God history series. As always, don't forget to like and subscribe, and let's get started with the Age of Genesis. Now, as I mentioned, Ashul Edwaru melted half the key into 13 weapons. These weapons were originally meant for Zahard and his 12 companions. However, what I didn't mention was that soon after Zahard proclaimed himself as the king of the tower, he proposed to Arlene. Arlene, however, was already engaged to Vi at this point and turned him down. Enraged by Arlene's answer, Zahard decided to keep the 13 weapons to himself and didn't share them with the great warriors. Although at first confused about Zahard's decision to stop climbing the tower, none of the great warriors tried to stop Zahard apart from 2 people, Arlene and Vi. Arlene and Vi then formed an organization with the goal of liberating the key from Zahard. Zahard, however, had no intention to give the key away and assembled an army to fight on his behalf. This army included fanatics of Zahard as well as some of the children of the great warriors. On the other hand, Arlene and Vi's organization included descendants of the native ones. This war went on for quite some time, and this is where it gets a bit complicated, and I'm not 100% sure on the order of events, so keep that in mind for the rest of the video. In fact, keep that in mind for the entire series. It's not always very clear which event happened when, since time works very differently in the Tower of God universe. I will still try my best to talk about the events in a chronological order, as that is the whole point of this series. Anyway, after Zahard declared himself as the king of the tower, he met with his data self, which existed in the hidden floor inside the Hell Train. The data version of Zahard was more flustered than happy when he met the real Zahard, because in spite of how flawless and perfect his future self seemed as a powerful and great king, he sensed a small but massive feeling of anxiety within his real self. Data Zahard was so disappointed after he found out that his real self is feared of something despite having gotten so powerful. Data Zahard decided to help his real self to change the hidden floor and hide a special bracelet. Data Zahard brought a mirror, which led to a new mirror world. Data Zahard proposed to his 12 companions that they need to move and live in the new mirror world for privacy, because the current mirror world they are in is getting crowded with the data of regulars who have cleared the Hell Train. Data Zahard received this mirror from his real self, the King Zahard. All of Zahard's companions agreed to move into the new mirror world, except the Data version of Khun Edwan. Data Edwan refused to move into the new mirror world because he was suspicious of Data Zahard. Data Edwan felt that Data Zahard had changed into someone different after he met the real him. Later, the suspicion of Data Edwan was confirmed after he investigated and traveled to the new mirror world himself. He found out that all of the data that crossed over into the new mirror world were deleted. As the war in the real world continued, the great warriors sided with Zahard. Aline and V had to come to the realization that they could not defeat Zahard and his army, which forced them into hiding. However, soon after they ran away, Aline got pregnant with V's child. Having heard the rumors that the love of his life was expecting a baby with another man, Zahard became furious. Now Zahard, who had earlier been willing to allow her to stay alive in exile, tracked Aline down and brutally murdered the child right in front of her. This traumatic incident caused Aline to go insane, as she tried multiple times to commit suicide. However, she was unable to kill herself because of the immortality contract she made with the administrator of the 100th floor during her initial climb with Zahard and the other great warriors. Depressed over seeing his wife in such a state, V, who didn't have an immortality contract, eventually took his own life in order to save Aline from her continued suffering. He hoped that she could return to their former companions if he was no more. Before dying, he wrote a note telling Aline to forget everything and to return to her companions, in hopes she could find some semblance of normality. But it was too late. Aline's hatred towards Zahard was already too great, and the death of V only further made her more bitter. She wandered the tower for a very long time, in hopes of finding a way out of the tower. She used a magic spell to keep the body of her dead child from rotting, and kept keepsakes from V around with her. She believed that she could find a way to resurrect her dead child if she could make it outside. Aline finally found a way outside, but left behind a personal pocket with her diary. At the end of her diary, she wrote this: "I finally found a way to get out of this place. A place without Zahard or the administrators. I don't know where this place will be, but as long as I can see that vast sky and shining stars, which are so much like my own home, it doesn't matter." But even as I was leaving this place, I could not let go of the longing for my love and the pity for my dead child. So, I decided to offer this child's body to the god on the outside. Someday that god's power will enter the dead child's body and awaken him again. That child will open the door to this tower and return someday. He shall achieve vengeance for my love and finish the war which we started with his own hands. He shall destroy corrupt power and bring truth to the tower. God's messenger shall place the red thorn in that child's hands, and that child shall use that red thorn to cut the throat of the greedy king. And he shall find the hidden key, open the door, and lead everyone on the tower to greater heights. And this is where the story of Aline and V, the great warriors, ends. However, the age of Genesis has only just begun. Zahard and the 10 family heads did everything they could to erase the traces of Aline and V's existence. All structures and records of them were destroyed, and even the memories of artificial life forms were changed. Zahard's army hunted down and killed most of the native one's direct descendants. Those that managed to escape and survive were cursed with a terrible spell. These remaining native one's descendants were later known as the Cursed People. These cursed people and their descendants were affected by different curses. 1. They were born with a male and female side in a single body and lost their reproductive ability. 2. They had their original power sealed off. Or 3. The chances of them giving a stillbirth increased to the extreme, even if they got pregnant, so their number were on the decrease. The events that transpired led to Grace Mashea Laslek, who was a warlord serving under V, forming FUG, an organization with the sole purpose of killing Zahard and the 10 family heads. I might do a video talking about FUG separate from the history series. For now you should know that FUG was the main opposition to Zahard's army during the Age of Genesis, and that they killed many soldiers in Zahard's army, including children of the great family heads. However, FUG were not the only ones still fighting with Zahard's army. Several nations and countries also opposed Zahard becoming king of the tower. These nations formed an alliance, known as the 5 Flower Nations. One of these nations is called the Land of the Peach Blossom. The king of this land ordered a man to fight on the battlefield against Zahard's forces, which caused him to be killed in battle. This man had 2 daughters called Dowon and Cain. After their father passed away, Do-won and Kane trained hard to become rankers. Do-won had a lot of talent, so she was chosen by her nation to train with the masters of FUG. The other nations also sent representatives to train under FUG. These chosen warriors were then assigned to a special team, the Hidden Grove. This team consisted of outstanding rankers, including Taro York, Toro, Khun Lak, and other unnamed members. Their leaders were Do-won and Cha. Now, you might have noticed that one of the members' names is Khun. Khun Lak joined FUG simply as a rebellious act for fun and adventures, playing bad guys for thrill and adrenaline. He knew that no matter how much they tried, they could never change the tower, so he was prepared to exit or withdraw if things got too dangerous. But nevertheless, he enjoyed the journeys and grew to love his friends in the Hidden Grove. Anyway, the Hidden Grove was among the most accomplished teams formed during the Age of Genesis. They killed multiple high rankers in Zahard's army, as well as direct descendants of the great family heads. But after a while, Zahard and the 10 family heads got tired of the war and left the opposing countries a choice to either coexist under the Zahard Empire or to face extermination. One of the nations that were in this dilemma was the land of the Peach Blossom, Do-won's home. This kingdom was surrounded by Zahard's army, with no hope of freeing themselves. The kingdom chose coexistence. However, Zahard wanted a price for the coexistence. The price for coexistence was for the rebel groups and nations to give spoils of war. One of them was the flower wave controller Do-won. Do-won was to be sealed away. Having no other choice, Do-won decided to go back to her kingdom. In a teary goodbye with Cha, she reciprocated his feelings for her, saying that he could ask her out after she got unsealed. When Do-won returned to her hometown, the townspeople avoided making eye contact or talking to her. Do-won thought that they probably felt guilty. She then decided to not resent her own people and vowed to erase their memories away with a spell so that they wouldn't torment themselves over the guilty feeling for the rest of their lives. At some point after that, she visited the king of her nation, who immediately asked for her forgiveness for making such a harsh decision to seal her. Several days after her return, Zahard's forces did keep their promise to retreat, and the townspeople started looking happier. Slowly but surely, life returned to the land of the Peach Blossom. Do-won, who found it hard to bear the scenery, quarantined herself with Kane and hardly ever left the house. Then, one day, when she traveled the town for a bit, a little kid came to talk to her and grabbed one of Do-won's fingers. Do-won was initially happy and felt warmth, but it quickly became sadness when the kid said she grabbed Do-won so that she wouldn't run away and escape. Upon returning home, Do-won met a mysterious man whose appearance resembled that of Zahard. The man then introduced himself as a nameless adventurer and told Do-won that she can call him boss. The two of them talked for a while. When the man said he knew that Do-won was going to be sealed, he told her that it won't last forever and she would awaken in the future someday. Do-won was curious and asked the man whether the world would be peaceful when she woke up. The man replied that he was certain that the world would still be at war. The man then started telling Do-won the story about the boy who would spark a war in the future and added that Do-won would encounter the boy when she awakened. A few days after Do-won's encounter with the nameless adventurer, she was sealed away in a place known as the Wall of Peaceful Coexistence. After Do-won was sealed, Cha was deeply saddened and furious. He left the Hidden Grove and went on a rampage, killing several allies of Zahard's army until he met the nameless adventurer. The man told Cha that he could see Do-won again if he too would be sealed away. He also told him that he could meet a special boy who would make his wish come true once he has been unsealed. So, Cha decided to let himself be sealed as well. With their two leaders sealed, the remaining members of the Hidden Grove joined Kel Halam and his team. Kel Halam, a member of FUG, gained the ability to see fate. He created a plan to ambush King Zahard directly while he was asleep. For that purpose, he gathered powerful fighters from FUG to create a special attack team. Kel Halam was very confident with his ability to see fate and believed he could quickly turn the tides of the war. However, Khun Lak believed that FUG could not defeat Zahard and thought that such a plan would only end up as a suicide mission. But he couldn't stop his friends, who were consumed and blinded by rage, from executing the plan. In his desperate attempts to save all his friends in the Hidden Grove team from their inevitable death, Khun Lak contacted his Khun's family relative Po Bia Elaine after he found out that Elaine is an elite member in Zahard's army and told him everything about FUG's plan to assassinate Zahard in exchange for his friends' lives. Laboric, of course, accepted the information and promised Luck that he would save them. When the day of FUGs assault towards King Zahard, led by Kel Halam, had finally arrived, Luck followed Laboric's instructions to guide his friends to a promised safe location, where they will be captured for a while and later be released. Laboric did keep his promise to keep the Hidden Grove members safe, but he never intended to release them, and instead he took all of them as hostages to make Khun hide Luck do his dirty work on his behalf for a very long time. While the Hidden Grove members were captured by Laboric, Kel Halam and his team pushed through Zahard's army with relative ease, but something was different compared to Kel Halam's vision. Instead of finding a sleeping Zahard in a floating castle, they arrived at a cliff, and on the edge of the cliff there was a single man staring into the distance. Without facing the ambush team, this man simply said the following: "Let me ask you something. What am I to you people? I was the first one to climb the tower. I was the greatest fisherman in battle. And I pioneered a civilization of mutual understanding among the people of the tower. But you probably know me by a different word. The word king." Hearing this man claiming to be the king of the tower, Zahard himself, Kel Halam quickly called him a liar, since he saw Zahard sleeping in his vision. But Zahard simply called him a fool for being overconfident in his ability just because he could see a tiny glimpse into destiny. Zahard then proceeded to attack Kel Halam and his team and completely overwhelmed them, with the sole survivor being Kel Halam himself. Now, with the assault on Zahard failed and the Hidden Grove members either sealed, captured or killed, FUG had no other choice but to go into hiding. And so, the Age of Genesis came to an end and the Zahard Empire became the overwhelming force ruling over the tower. As mentioned in part 3 of my Tower of God history series, when Arlene and Vi had to come to the realization that they could not defeat Zahard and his army, they went into hiding. The place they fled to was on the 33rd floor. There, Arlene gave birth to a boy. However, once Zahard heard the rumor of Arlene giving birth, he tracked them down and brutally killed the child right in front of Arlene. Arlene used a spell to keep her dead child's body from rotting and searched for a way out of the tower, as she believed that she could find a way to resurrect her dead child if she could make it outside. After a long time of wandering the tower, she found a way out of the tower. Before leaving, Arlene left behind her personal pocket with a prophecy. This prophecy depicts a future where her child would return to the tower someday and how God's messenger shall place the red thorn in that child's hands, and that child shall use the red thorn to cut the throat of the greedy king. And in this video we will talk about how part of her prophecy became a reality. So join me as we look into the events that led to the 33rd floor to be known as the Floor of Death in part 4 of my Tower of God history series. As always, don't forget to like and subscribe, and let's get started. After the Age of Genesis came to an end, Zahard started to properly establish his empire. As part of that, Zahard demanded that an altar or shrine was to be created in honor of himself. This altar was to be created on the 33rd floor and was to be used as a pilgrimage site for his followers and worshippers. He also tried to erase any traces of Arlene and her child from the floor, but unable to forgive this land from being tarnished, he appeared, Enryu. On that day, a red rain fell from the sky when he appeared. The first thing he said was that only those who believe in the false king will remain here and face death. Hearing what Enryu said, everyone was flustered. However, they could all sense that he was not an ordinary person, so many people left the place. But Zahard's fanatic followers attacked Enryu, and without hesitation the Irregular started his attack. Countless spears made of red Shinsu fell on the battlefield. None of the fanatics that tried to attack Enryu could withstand his attack, and they were completely annihilated. As soon as Enryu killed all the fanatics, the enraged administrator of the 33rd floor appeared before him. The administrator, who had complete control over the Shinsu of the floor, and Enryu started their fight. The battle that proceeded between Enryu and the administrator was so intense that all the mountains, seas and buildings on the floor were destroyed, and the ground turned red. The massive administrator changed its form while fighting Enryu, but not even that really faced Enryu. However, the administrator's blood and flesh, which was believed to be indestructible, immortal and invincible, were viciously ripped apart by Enryu's attacks. Not even the administrator's ability to freely control the Shinsu on the floor could stop Enryu. Ultimately, the administrator was defeated and killed, and the Shinsu of the 33rd floor lost its master. For a long time after that, a rain of Shinsu has continued to fall there. Enryu then hit a divine force that is able to kill Zahard on the 33rd floor and disappeared. To this day, no one knows where Enryu is, and his actions led to him becoming the number 1 ranked individual in the tower at that time, a rank which was previously occupied by the king of the tower Zahard himself. The 33rd floor changed completely after Enryu appeared and became known as the Floor of Death. Most of the people who were on the floor died. It was hard, even for the strongest rankers, to survive in the Shinsu without the administrator. However, some people were lucky, since they were surrounded by the dead administrator's body and were isolated from the outside. But the people who did survive had to suffer from aging and lack of food. No one could leave the floor because Zahard's army was killing every survivor that tried to leave the Floor of Death in order to stop rumors about Enryu from spreading. Ultimately, the 2 high rankers Garam Zahard and Garam Zahard, who were the leaders of the surviving people, found a way to survive in this hellish place with the help of a certain someone. They used their magic to create a place called the Spirit Room, where they stored the souls of all citizens of the 33rd floor and developed a way for people to live forever without aging. However, this immortality didn't come without its drawbacks. Souls tied to the Spirit Room are placed under a curse, which forbids them from leaving this place. The rumor of a thorn that was able to kill Zahard spread, and FUG started looking for it. Afterwards, the people of the 33rd floor decided to guard the holes of the Floor of Death so that their secret would not leak out to the outside world. However, not everyone was content. And eventually Hell Joe, who sought to escape, rebelled, used the power he got from a certain someone, took over South City and imprisoned Garam Zahard. Thanks to Garam Zahard's special eyes, which could predict the future, and the aid of a mysterious woman, Hell Joe's invasion to the North City eventually failed. With FUG seeking the Thorn's fragments, Hell Joe formed a partnership with them to find the Thorn in exchange for a way to be able to leave the Floor of Death. The story behind the Princesses of Zahard is one I wanted to talk about since the start of this video series, since the Zahard princesses are a key element of the entire story. However, I wasn't too sure where in the timeline it would fit. I'm pretty sure the whole concept behind the princess system started sometime after the Age of Genesis. Anyway, join me as we dive deeper into the history behind the Zahard princesses in part 5 of my Tower of God history series. As always, don't forget to like and subscribe, and let's get started. The concept behind the Zahard princesses has been created to wipe out people's immediate complaints, which most likely had something to do with the fact that Zahard had no direct descendants. Since Zahard's blood was so strong, he could not create a child with any woman, so the leader of the Po Bia family, Po Bia Gustan, proposed an idea by injecting talented female children with Zahard's blood and making them climb the tower and compete. The best of them would become the king's bride. This is how the Zahard princesses have been created. The standards of being nominated as a Princess of Zahard include power, resourcefulness and appearance, but the most important factor evaluated is if the girl is capable of properly receiving his power. After selection, the princesses are imbued with Zahard's power through a special procedure which involves injecting Zahard's blood. The most outstanding children from this selection are then granted Zahard's power through a special method, further enhancing their combat and other skills. Hence, Princesses of Zahard are physically stronger than most members of the 10 families. Being recognized as a princess is an honorable and almost impossible achievement. There are many candidates vying for the position. A princess is chosen every several hundred years. Apart from the 10 family heads and Zahard, they are considered the ultimate species in the tower. They are an existence, which at times serves as a sword to defend the authority of the king and other times is worshipped by the citizens of the tower. The princesses are governed by a strict set of rules. They must not have a relationship with a man. They must not marry, they may not have a child, they must not help an enemy of the Zahard Empire. These rules are in place to avoid the power of Zahard from spreading. Special forces within Zahard's army, called the Royal Enforcement Division or RED, is in charge of keeping the princesses in check and guaranteeing that they uphold the rules. A princess who has climbed the tower and became a ranker might be chosen to become a formal or acknowledged princess. Only acknowledged princesses are eligible to receive a 13-month series, as they have proven their ability by climbing the tower. This system forced the princesses to compete against each other and fight over the 13-month series to prove themselves as worthy. The official purpose of this contest is to declare whichever princess collects all 13 months as Zahard's wife, but no princess has managed to do so yet. This is the story between Zahard and the princesses, as it has been passed down on for ages. But reality is different. The first Zahard princesses were possessed by the evil ghost residing inside the 13 months and ended up hating and killing one another. When the competition got more intense, the relations between the family leaders also became disordered. With time, even the initial goal had been forgotten and it became just a pure competition and murder. As this seemingly endless war went on, a genius appeared who seemed like she could end this tragedy. Her name was Eurasia Zahard, and she was the daughter of two family leaders, namely Eurasia Blossom and Po Bia Kirin. As the daughter of two family heads, she showed incredible talent and was given one of the 13 months, the colorless December. She displayed talents that even the 10 great family heads could not deny, but right when it seemed like she could end this cruel competition, she went insane. She murdered everyone from the Zahard family who crossed her path. Ultimately, a horde of rankers and Zahard princesses were sent to stop Eurasia Zahard's rampage. There's also a rumor that even King Zahard himself had to interfere, and also that Haste Zahard, who refused a 13-month weapon after becoming a ranker, participated in the battle as well. Anyway, as powerful and talented as Zahard might have been, even she could not defeat everyone, and so she was trapped in a mysterious labyrinth along with a 13-month weapon, the colorless December. Meanwhile, or actually sometime before the Eurasia Zahard incident happened, Princess Yuram went on a mission assigned to her by the Zahard family. She ignited 2 of the 13 months after she encountered a tough enemy during her mission. After she ignited the weapons, she went on a rampage, lost her senses and murdered some nearby allies and one princess. Because of her rampage, her family faced danger of being branded as a public enemy. Because of that, her own twin sister, Garam Zahard, had no other choice but to kill Yuram and take one of her sister's weapons, the Indigo July. That, together with her own Blue August, made her the holder of 2 weapons of the 13-month series. However, later Garam Zahard became suspicious of the 13-month series and broke into the labyrinth where Eurasia Zahard was sealed, as she didn't believe that the person she had admired so much would simply go mad. Once she met Enne, she was told the secret behind the 13 months and the Zahard princesses. Enne told Garam that from the very start, King Zahard never actually intended to get married. The reason why he created the princesses of Zahard was to wipe out people's immediate complaints. The incident in which all of the first princesses of Zahard died was also a tragedy manipulated by Zahard. When Enne Zahard initially discovered the truth, she went to question Zahard about it, but all she heard were cruel secrets. One of the secrets was the ghost of the 13 months. The ghost of the 13 months is the soul of the first person who once failed the initial selection process to become the princess of Zahard. As a result, it resented the chosen princesses, and so it made a deal with King Zahard to infiltrate into the spirits of the 13 months in order to torment the other princesses. When a princess ignites 2 or more of the 13-month series at the same time, the ghost takes over their bodies and has complete control. During this possession, the ghost causes the princess to go on a rampage. As a result, Zahard will declare that the said princess is insane and execute her. More than 5 princesses were sacrificed due to the ghost possessing their bodies, including Yuram Zahard. King Zahard used such methods to keep any princess from collecting all of the 13 months. After this discovery, Enne's attitude started to change, oddly and dangerously, and sometimes she killed for no reason at all, especially members of the Zahard family. This is when Zahard started to send rankers after Enne Zahard, who was ultimately captured and sealed. Which brings us back to Eurasia Zahard's meeting with Garam. Enne Zahard told Garam the story of Zahard's initial climb and how there used to be more than 10 irregulars that entered the tower with Zahard. Garam didn't know whether to believe Eurasia Enne or not, as something like a hidden irregular seemed impossible. Enne said to Garam that she would find out about everything if she could find a pocket which Eurasia Zahard hid. Garam eventually managed to find that pocket, and it was only after she saw what was inside the pocket that Garam realized that what Enne told her wasn't a lie, because that pocket was written by Arlene herself. The diary said that she entered the tower with the 10 leaders to go on an extraordinary journey. The diary also describes how Zahard was in love with Arlene, but that her heart already belonged to another man, a man she called by the affectionate name V. Now, I won't talk much more about Arlene's pocket, as I already did so in part 3 of my Tower of God history series, so if you want to know more, I suggest you go and check it out by clicking on the info card that just appeared above my head or by following the link in the video description below. Anyway, once Garam found Arlene's pocket, she went into hiding. She hid on the floor of death as that floor had no administrator. Eventually, she also aided Grand Deja in his attempt to stop Heljo from taking over North City. After Garam Zahard went into hiding and Eurasia Zahard was sealed, they became famous rankers within the tower. Eurasia Zahard got the nickname Great White Shark, and so she has to this day the highest rank of any non-irregular in the tower. Her rank even surpasses that of most family heads, although she is sharing her rank with another princess of Zahard. Princess Adori Zahard is currently the strongest active princess in the tower. She is the commander-in-chief of Zahard's army as well as the captain of Zahard's royal guards. She wields the only S-rank weapon of the 30-month series, the Golden November. Although ranked highly, Princess Adori Zahard has no noticeable achievements as a ranker. Even though she is the captain of Zahard's royal guards, she rarely participates in any active duty. According to a blog post of SIU, Adori Zahard and her royal guards are the only people apart from the main Arie family branch that learned the swordsmanship of the Arie family. The reason why she was chosen to lead the Zahard army, regardless of her lack of achievements, was simply because her power was so overwhelming. Even when she was still a regular, she was easily able to defeat a ranker, which was unheard of at the time. Many people compare her to Enne Zahard, and to this day, rankers like to have discussions about which one of them is stronger. Adori Zahard is also considered the most beautiful among the princesses, which is fucking saying something. Anyway, before I get to the last talking point for this video, I do want to spend a little time talking about some of the princesses that will play a bigger role in the future, but probably won't be mentioned for a while. One of them is Khun Zahard. I will talk a lot more about her in future videos. For now, all you need to know is that she is the daughter of Khun Edwan and that she is ranked in the top 100 of high rankers, and that she is the owner of the Yellow May, one of the 13-month series. She is also the only Zahard princess of the Khun family to be awarded with a 13-month series. Marshani cleared the Hell Train at a very young age, and she was involved in the capture of Eurasia Zahard. For the other person I would like to talk about, we have to jump roughly 2500 years into the future, which is roughly 500 years before Baam entered the tower, because the person that I want to talk about for a bit is Ha Yuri Zahard. Yuri is the great daughter of Ha Yuri, the head of the Ha family. It is said that Yuri greatly resembles her great-grandmother, Yurin, in terms of appearance and personality. Yuri became a ranker within 200 to 300 years after she started her climb, after which it only took her another 100 years to become a high ranker. Because of this, Yuri was considered a prodigy, even among the Zahard princesses, and was bestowed with a 13-month series, the Black March. In fact, over the last 500 years since Baam entered the tower, Yuri was the only princess to formally receive a 13-month series. Yuri's current rank is somewhere within the top 500 high rankers. But anyway, the last thing I want to talk about in this video is what might happen when a princess intentionally decides to break the rules I mentioned at the beginning of this video. I want to talk about Arlenes Zahard. Arlenes Zahard quickly became a ranker after she passed the selection process to become a princess of Zahard. Her ability was acknowledged and she was bestowed with the Green April. However, soon after she got the Green April, she fell in love with a man who was a palace cook. They secretly shared their love, as a Zahard princess is not allowed to have a relationship with a man. However, after a while, Arlenes became pregnant, which was also against the rules and might be considered the worst sin a princess of Zahard can commit. Arlenes refused to give up the baby, so she and her lover ran away together, delivered the baby and lived in secrecy. After King Zahard heard the news, he became furious and gave orders to find and execute Arlenes Zahard. In addition to violating the rules governing a princess, Arlenes had gone missing with a weapon from the 13-month series, which was also considered a serious violation. Although they lived their lives in fear of being found by Zahard and his army, and Arlenes having frequent fights with her husband, the three lived their lives together and were happy. However, after what was probably a few hundred years, a squad of fighters from the Royal Enforcement Division discovered their location. Her lover was executed by another princess, whose identity is currently unknown. Red killed Arlenes Zahard, but before her death, Arlenes got someone to rescue her daughter and the Green April. Words about an illegitimate Zahard princess started to spread, and as a result, Arlenes' child is considered the shame of Zahard, and several groups within the tower such as Red seek her execution. Tower of God has a long and complex lore behind it, which is how I could make 5 previous videos about a single event in the Tower of God timeline and still didn't even really scratch the surface. Which is also why I decided to make this video a bit different compared to the previous ones. Instead of focusing on a single topic in the Tower of God universe, I will jump all over the timeline and talk about some events that we don't have enough information to justify doing their own entry in the video series. Anyway, as always, don't forget to like and subscribe, and let's get started. I want to start with the story of a woman I could and probably should have mentioned in my previous video where I talked about the princesses of Zahard. I want to talk about Po Bia Elaine. Elaine was born into the Grey Wolf family branch, one of the 20 branches of the Po Bia family. Although Elaine was not a direct descendant of the Po Bia family head, her talent exceeded those who were. Because of her outstanding skills and abilities, she was nominated to become a princess of Zahard. The Grey Wolf family quickly gained influence amongst the branch families as a result of Elaine's nomination. Elaine was assigned a servant from the Po Bia family. Alfine was one of the servants sent from the Po Bia family to attend to Elaine's wishes. At that time, Alfine watched Elaine closely, more than anyone else. She truly believed that Elaine was well suited to become a Zahard princess because of her qualities. However, a week before Elaine was meant to go to the palace of Zahard for her coronation, a competition between children of the Po Bia branch families was held. Although Elaine was not required to attend because she was going to become a princess of Zahard, she was still summoned to attend by the main family. During the competition, she met a boy with skills surpassing all other children of the 20 branch families and fell in love with him. However, because of the rules that govern the princesses of Zahard, Elaine was not allowed to fall in love. She decided to give up on becoming a princess of Zahard and attempted to escape with the boy from the floating castle. However, guards dispatched from both the main family and the Zahard family were waiting for her. Then and there, Elaine had realized the fact that the boy who she fell in love with was merely a test to find out if she was suitable for living as a princess of Zahard. Because Elaine failed to become a princess of Zahard, the head of the Po Bia family ordered the entire Grey Wolf family to be imprisoned and imposed a massive penalty fee. Elaine herself was sentenced to a special labor punishment, in which she was supposed to rule over the Name Hunt Station on behalf of the 10 families. The Name Hunt Station was a lawless, neglected area on the 39th floor. The 10 families had conquered the place years ago and were planning to turn the station into a pyramid slave scheme, trading the names and disposing of regulars. Elaine agreed to the punishment as she felt guilty about the massive penalty fee which had been imposed on her family. She immediately surpassed all the regulars at the station and made them her slaves. She took on the persona known as Kaiser, implemented a rule that made it near impossible to challenge her, and ruled over the Name Hunt Station for 1000 years. And that was the story of Po Bia Elaine, at least for the time being. And now I want to jump even further into the past, as I want to talk about Jinsung Ha. Jinsung Ha is the son of one of Yurin's twins, making him the grandson of Ha Yuri, the head of the Ha family, and Arie Hon, the head of the Arie family. Jinsung Ha is very old, thousands and thousands of years old to be more precise. As the grandson of 2 family heads, Jinsung Ha always enjoyed a bit of recognition and respect. It is said that when he was younger, he met with King Zahard, which is a rare event, as Zahard and the 10 family heads rarely talk with people that are beneath them. At some point, Jinsung Ha fell in love with a woman. That woman was later sold to a branch of the Ha family. In his anger, he annihilated the entire branch, unable to rescue her as the woman died as well. This event ultimately led to him holding a resentment towards the great families, so much so that he instantly killed every great family member he encountered. His hatred towards the great families grew so big that he ultimately joined FUG as a martial arts teacher for their slayers. Jinsung Ha's action and abilities made him rank within the top 100 high rankers. Sometime after that, and roughly 3000 years before Baam entered the tower, Jinsung Ha heard an interesting rumor about a ranker guarding something called the Essence of Bravery. The Essence of Bravery contains all the wisdom of fighting, so Jinsung Ha went to an unexplored area of the tower which was out of the influence of the floor's ruler, and there he met Calavan, the ranker that was guarding the gem. Jinsung Ha and Calavan fought, and Jinsung Ha was very impressed with the young ranker's abilities and talent. After the fight, Calavan was still able to stand up after taking a beating from Jinsung Ha. Jinsung Ha asked why a great talent like Calavan was staying in an isolated area. Calavan mentioned that he belonged to a village that guards the essence of bravery and that he is the current guardian. Whenever a person from the family becomes a ranker, They fight the person that is currently guarding the gem, with the stronger ranker killing the weaker ranker and replacing them as the guardian of the gem. Jinsung Ha told Calavan that his bloodline already produced the ultimate achievement, which is Calavan himself, and that he should be the one to inherit the essence of bravery. On the same day, Calavan decides to smash the bronze statue holding the gem and claim the essence for himself. After Calavan smashed the bronze statue, he touched the gem and memories from the past started to appear. An image showed the back of a man with large muscles, who was also massive in size. Also, with just a glance of the man sealed in the gem, Calavan knew that he was a complete master of martial arts. The man in the past seemed to live in an ancient time where wars were always occurring. The man would keep fighting until blood of his enemies flowed like a river. When the man in the gem stopped fighting, he sealed himself inside the gem, known as the essence of bravery. Calavan's ancestor may have connections with the man sealed inside the gem, and the moment when the man sealed himself in the gem, Calavan saw that the man's eyes were filled with regret and sadness, but Calavan ultimately obtained the power of the gem. The next time Jinsung Ha saw Calavan, he was already as strong as a high ranker. Jinsung Ha suggested that Calavan became a slayer for FUG, but he kindly refused. Calavan then went on a journey, officially became a high ranker, and started to make a name for himself as he defeated many warriors and made them his subordinates. At one point in time, Calavan met King Zahard. Calavan acknowledged Zahard as the one true king and thought of Zahard as an omnipotent being. Calavan decided then and there that he would use his power to make everyone surrender to the king. This led to him and his followers joining Zahard's army, where Calavan eventually gained the rank of squadron commander of Zahard's 4th Army Corps. Now let's jump from Calavan, who refused the slayer position, to someone who has become a slayer at a young age, Karaka. Karaka's history is currently still unknown for the most part. However, it is known that he was trained in martial arts by Jinsung Ha, as mentioned in part 2 of my Tower of God history series, when Zahard became the king of the tower. He split the key of the tower that would open the door leading to higher floors into 2 parts, so that no one could go beyond the 134th floor. He gave the first part of the key to Ashul Edwaru, who melted it and turned it into the 13-month series. The other half of the key was melted into several crimson rings with the crest of Zahard. These rings were handed to children whose existence was meant to be kept hidden alongside the rings, and Karaka is in possession of one of those rings. During his time as a regular, Karaka received special assignments from FUG while he was taking his tests and climbing the tower. Depending on the nature of those assignments, Karaka would assassinate a specific regular during a test, help specific regulars pass the test, or fail all other regulars and pass the test alone. It is said that the goals of those assignments were probably to violate or mock the rules of the tests. At some point after Karaka officially became a FUG slayer, Jinsung Ha visited Karaka and gave him a present to celebrate this achievement. The gift that Karaka received was an armor suit. Karaka swore that he would use this armor to achieve FUG's dream, but Jinsung Ha told Karaka that this armor wasn't for revenge, but rather for surviving. Jinsung Ha knew that because Karaka became a slayer at a young age, he would eventually make a lot of enemies, so this suit was given to him to help Karaka stay alive. Karaka quickly gained big influence, reputation, fame and popularity in a relatively short time. It didn't take long before the Zahard Empire noticed and finally acknowledged Karaka's presence, his growth, power and army as a new threat to the empire. However, the biggest threat to Zahard and his empire arrived roughly 500 years before Baam entered the tower, in the form of another Irregular, whose appearance would shock the tower to its very core. I'm talking about Phantaminum. Phantaminum is an Irregular, as well as one of the strongest AXIS in the TOS universe. I will explain what that means in a little bit. Anyway, one day, Phantaminum suddenly appeared in the tower and breached Zahard's inner palace, massacring many high rankers. He successfully shattered all lines of defense with his unique combat style. It is said that he used a weapon that has not been seen anywhere inside the tower before. Phantaminum easily killed everyone that stood in his way and ultimately faced Zahard. But he vanished without fighting Zahard. When Phantaminum broke into the palace, it is said that he met Yuri Zahard in the inner palace. There is a great diversity in opinion as to why he didn't kill her. All Yuri Zahard had to say about the matter was that he is a scumbag. Most of the eyewitnesses either died or lost their minds out of fear after Phantaminum appeared, so the stories were not very accurately reported. There were a lot of objections to the ranking administration office about giving Phantaminum the first ranking, who had disappeared after the attack on the palace of Zahard and had become inactive, but everyone agreed his impressive strength alone was overwhelming. As a result, Phantaminum became the number 1 ranker in the tower, pushing Zahard to number 3. Irregulars were since seen in a bad light because of him, and these views had a big impact on Yurek Magino when he climbed the tower, but I will talk a lot more about him in a future part, so subscribe to my channel if you don't want to miss it once it is released. Anyway, as promised, I will now try to explain what an AXIS is. An AXIS user, also known as an AXIS, is a person with the power to influence a tale within the Tales user story. To remind everyone, the Tower of God storyline takes place inside the Tales user universe and is only one tale in the overall TOS universe. An AXIS is a completely different entity to a ranker. A non-AXIS user is unable to interfere in any way with an AXIS, meaning even the weakest AXIS could defeat the strongest non-AXIS. An AXIS user can only be defeated by a more powerful AXIS. What that means is that Phantaminum, who is one of the strongest AXIS, could never be defeated or even harmed by anything or anyone in the tower. Currently, no one in the tower is aware of the fact that Phantaminum is an AXIS. SIU once mentioned that Phantaminum could instantly destroy the Tower of God story if he wanted to, which is also why I highly doubt that Phantaminum will ever appear in the Tower of God story again. However, he is still the #1 ranked entity in the tower, as well as a popular character in the Tower of God community, which is why I thought I should at the very least mention him and the whole AXIS concept. Anyway, before I end this part, there are still 2 more characters I want to talk about. One of these characters is Han Sung-yu. There isn't a whole lot of information about his history, however it is shown time and time again that he has a deep knowledge about the past and the great warriors that entered the tower with Zahard. According to SIU, Han Sang-yu is also deeply connected to one of the family heads, namely Hendo Lok Blood Matter. He is considered a genius wave controller and apparently refuses to become a high ranker. When Han Sang-yu was still a regular, he boarded the Hell Train and eventually reached the hidden floor, where his data version was searching for the data version of Khun Edwan. It turns out that the reason why Han Sang-yu wanted to meet data Khun Edwan was to inform Edwan that someday the son of V would come to the hidden floor, defeat Data Zahard and liberate the hidden floor from his hands. Data Han Sang-yu also requested Data Edwan to help him on this matter. He also told Data Edwan that the real Zahard has changed into a ruthless king of the tower, and that God will send someone to punish Zahard. He will cause a stir in this tower. This is a fate that has been tied together by Arlene Grace. Once the real Han Sang-yu became a ranker, he was attacked by the last person I want to talk about today. Evankhell is one of the strongest high rankers with her power of an Ancient One. If you want to know more about Ancient Ones, I suggest you check out part 1 of my Tower of God history series. Not much has been revealed concerning Evankhell's past either, except that she killed the former ruler of the 2nd floor who belonged to the Great Family. She then took ownership of the 2nd floor and became rank 60 in the tower. As mentioned, Han Sang-yu was about to be killed by Evankhell, but before that could happen, Evankhell asked what Han Sang-yu is afraid of, as she was curious why he wasn't scared when his life was in danger. And then Han Sang-yu responded back, saying that he never thought he would live forever. He said he is not scared of dying. However, his only fear is having his rage fade away and be unable to change the tower. Evankhell in response also said she is afraid of that too and asked what Han Sang-yu is trying to achieve, with him responding, "I want to usher in a new era in this tower." So Evankhell allowed Han Sang-yu to live and he became the test director on her floor. Death is easier to perform than domination. To me, death is a gift for those who aren't even worth dominating. Po Bia Elaine. The history behind the Beastkin is one filled with anger, betrayal, sadness, but also love. So join me as I dive deeper into the history behind the Beastkin as well as the Baylord Brothers in part 7 of my Tower of God history series. As always, don't forget to like and subscribe, and let's start. Shortly after the end of a great war, someone very influential requested the workshop to artificially create a new race by mixing the genes of human children and animals. This is how the Beastkin were created. To determine the most superior species among them, the workshop did cruel experiments on them and let them fight in multiple survival tests. That is where the 2 beastkins, Yasratcha and WangWang, first met. Yasratcha was a beastkin that was created by mixing human genes with that of a cat, while WangWang resembled a dog. Yasratcha's first thought when he met WangWang was that he didn't want to get involved with him, because it seemed like WangWang would live a boring life. Then, one day, the workshop gathered all surviving beastkins in one place and made them fight. WangWang and Yasratcha were two of the survivors of this cruel test. They didn't lay hands on each other because they knew of each other's strengths. The few beastkin that did survive the battle became regulars and climbed the tower. WangWang and Yasratcha climbed the tower separately, but not long after they became D-class regulars, they met again. They talked about how neither of them could stay with other regulars in a team for very long, because they were different. WangWang told Yasratcha how he wants to form his own group with someone who has the same conditions as him, and so WangWang started to follow Yasratcha, who was initially against the idea of forming a group, but was ultimately convinced to do so by WangWang. WangWang took care of most of the work for the team, and Yasratcha only got involved if they encountered a tough enemy. Yasratcha was someone who enjoyed being alone, but being with WangWang was convenient and made him feel quite satisfied. So when Yasratcha got used to being in a team with WangWang, Yasratcha asked if WangWang had a dream. WangWang replied instantly that his dream was to find his one and only master and serve him. Yasratcha responded by telling WangWang that that is not a dream and how he should get over his instincts. That is also where Yasratcha told WangWang that he decided on his dream, which was to prove to WangWang that he doesn't need a master. Hundreds of years later they became A-class regulars, and the workshop called the two of them and told them that the person that founded the beastkin research would become their master once they passed the test to become rankers. Yasratcha thought that this might happen and didn't like the idea one bit, but WangWang was different. After hearing that he would have a master, he got so excited that he couldn't sleep for several days. Then one day, WangWang and Yasratcha got into an argument because Yasratcha could not understand how WangWang could not want to run away and live freely. However, WangWang simply wanted to follow his instincts and told Yasratcha to do the same and simply do what his instincts told him to do. So he suggested that they should go their separate ways from here on out. Yasratcha agreed with a heavy heart, and that was the last time the two saw each other as regulars. After parting ways, Yasratcha became a ranker and decided to not contact the workshop and ignored all their attempts to reach him. He then started to form his own group with subordinates that he shared his power with, and not long after that they became a famous group. However, one day, a soldier from the workshop came looking for Yasratcha and killed every one of his subordinates. The soldier told Yasratcha that he shouldn't have ignored the workshop's calls and that his master was waiting for him. Yasratcha screamed at the soldier that he is his own master. The soldier responded that he should just stop resisting, like the dog did, and his new master wasn't someone he could run away from anyway. Ultimately, Yasratcha chose to go to that master. On their way, Yasratcha became curious who this big shot new master could be. Once he arrived at the destination, he was greeted by an imposing figure. Po Bia Kirin is the chief trainer of Po Bia's army, and just when Yasratcha assumed that he must be the new master, Kirin summoned the dog and his tamer. This dog was none other than Yasratcha's former teammate WangWang, who was wearing a leash. Yasratcha became furious when he saw WangWang and asked himself what kind of master this was, when suddenly a window appeared and a voice could be heard. Kirin immediately bowed his head and commanded everyone else to do so as well, as the voice that came out of the window belonged to the highest ranked individual in this place, one of the great warriors that entered the tower, none other than the head of the Po Bia family, Po Bia Troimarai. After that, Yasratcha realized that the family leader is someone that is unbelievably far away from everyone else. Yasratcha spent the next year as the pet of the Po Bia family head, and his daily routine consisted of him playing around in a place called the Cat Tower. However, WangWang was treated very differently, as he was always on a leash and had to fight other beastkins every day. The reason for that was that the Po Bia family wanted WangWang to lead his own group, as unlike Yasratcha, he was completely loyal to the family head. Soon after, Yasratcha got permission to freely roam in the floating castle where they lived, and as soon as he got that freedom, he went to see WangWang, who was still on a leash and locked inside a cage. Yasratcha, who thought that this kind of life wasn't worth living, asked WangWang to run away with him even if it meant death for them. However, WangWang had no complaints about his current life. He told Yasratcha multiple times that serving his master and being loyal to him was always the life he wanted. Yasratcha thought that he lost his mind and decided to escape alone when he met another Beast King survivor from the workshop called Lobby. That is when Yasratcha was told why WangWang was always on a leash and the truth behind the beastkin experiment, as anima have the power to control animals. However, that wasn't good enough, so the Po Bia family requested the workshop to mix the genes of animals and humans to create powerful warriors that they could control. Lobby experienced this mind control firsthand, and he described this experience as humiliating. However, WangWang was different, as the mind control of the top animals in the Po Bia family had no effect on him, and and he only followed the orders out of his own free will, which is why they kept him on a leash. Hearing the truth, Yasratcha decided to stay in the floating castle, and after a long time, he and WangWang adjusted to their lives in different ways. WangWang as the loyal dog and Yasratcha as a pet cat. Yasratcha earned the family leader's trust and a high position within the family, and started to get involved in making decisions for the family. As time continued to pass, WangWang used his power to increase the number of canines and trained them to become a loyal army. Even after their number increased and gained recognition for accomplishing many jobs, WangWang was still kept on a leash, as the branch leaders of the Po Bia family were worried about this creature that they couldn't control. They were worried about him gaining too much power, so they chose a woman who would marry WangWang and produce a new heir to inherit WangWang's power. The child was named Doom, and soon after his birth was sent to a training camp where the branch leaders found a way to control his young child's mind. It was decided that this child would one day take over and rule the canines in the future. Yasratcha and WangWang also became stronger, and Yasratcha used his position to make allies within the family. Not long after that, their power and influence became stronger than that of most of the branch leaders of the Po Bia family, to the point where they were involved in big wars. One of those wars took place in the middle area, where the Zahard army tried to get hold of a special creature. That was when Yasratcha first saw the hologram of a man in a red cape. It was the projection of none other than that of the highest being in the tower. It was King Zahard. The thought that King Zahard was watching over this battle was enough to make Yasratcha's blood go wild, and for the first time in a long while, he gave his best in battle, as if to impress the king. As Yasratcha continued to fight, a thought occurred to him. Why would the king himself watch over this battle, and why would the Zahard army have to use this massive army just to capture this one being? When suddenly, this massive creature, tall as a mountain, appeared, the ancient creature Agnerak. As soon as the ancient creature appeared, it used its power to simply freeze everyone's time on the battlefield and make them unconscious. However, Yasratcha managed to open his eyes as a massive hand was approaching him. As soon as Yasratcha saw the hand, his instinct kicked in and he moved out of the way. The ancient creature was seemingly taken aback when this cat moved while in its territory. Agnerak stated that there is another creature here who can overcome his instincts, but refused to do so. The dog didn't even lose his consciousness in Agnerak's territory. Agnerak then said that he is intrigued by them and wants to watch over them more closely. Just then, WangWang realized that the ancient creature stopped the time for everyone and let out a huge scream, which freed everyone on the battlefield from Agnerak's mind control. And just when the battle was about to continue, Agnerak disappeared. And while everyone was celebrating their victory, WangWang was fixated on the crater where Agnerak used to be, as there stood a female beastkin all alone. That beastkin turned out to be Agnerak's host, and her name was Nen Neya. When Yasratcha saw WangWang's puzzled face, he knew that WangWang lost his heart to someone other than his master. At that point, Yasratcha felt jealous for WangWang, who had such a special power, and jealousy for that woman, as she accomplished something that he couldn't do in hundreds of years. But there was another feeling inside Yasratcha. He felt the urge to ruin everything. A few days later, the head of the Po Bia family gave Kirin the order to prepare a suit for WangWang and Nen Neya, as he wished for them to produce a child. When Kirin asked the family head why he would go to such lengths and not simply order WangWang to mate with her, the family head responded that he is simply doing this on a whim. However, Nen Neya is withdrawn and initially does not want to interact with WangWang at all, but later they opened up to each other and developed a relationship. WangWang asked the family leader for permission to go out with her, who allowed them to move around the main house. The two of them spent a lot of time together, and so naturally did Yasratcha. Under the pretense that he wanted to help them with their dates, Yasratcha would often make fun of Nen Neya and asked if anything romantic happened between them. Nen Neya would brush his jokes aside and talk about flowers. This is also when Yasratcha asked Nen Neya to take WangWang away from the family head, as he was sure that she was the only one who could persuade WangWang. Later that day, WangWang was summoned by the family head, who grew tired of waiting for them to make a child. So he gave WangWang the order to mate with her by tomorrow night. WangWang approaches her the next night, when Nen Neya grabs him and asks whether he is doing this because he loves her or if it's because of an order. He says it's because he loved her, as he embraces her. Nen Neya whispered in his ear that he's a liar, but appreciate that he at least lied to make her feel better. The next day, as WangWang looked troubled about his actions, Nen told him that he did nothing wrong. She said that she didn't care whether WangWang lied to her or not, but she did ask him for a promise. She wanted him to promise that when their baby is born in the future, that he would be able to refuse an order his master gave him. WangWang promised her that he would Soon after, Nen became pregnant, and a few months later a baby boy was born. This boy was given the name Yama. Just like Doom, Yama was sent to a training facility. Doom really liked his family, and Nen took care of Doom as if he was her own child, and their happy family life continued for a while, since they truly loved each other. However, a few years later, the family had ordered WangWang to take half the Canaans to the outer tower and set up a base there. The family leader decided to give WangWang a bit more freedom and freed him of his leash, and also bestowed WangWang with the surname Baylord. WangWang and his canines were sent to a place in the outer tower to keep FUG in check and protect the Po Bia family there. WangWang was also told to meet his next mating partner there and have a child with her. The child was to be named Paul, and after its birth it was to be sent to the main family, where he would be trained, and when all 3 of his children are fully grown, they would inherit WangWang's power and lead the canines. After WangWang was told his orders, he became visually distraught, which led to the family head asking WangWang if he is no longer willing to take orders from his master. Before WangWang could really give an answer, Traumerei added that doesn't matter, as he is used to being betrayed by someone who is in love. Dominating those guys by force is his way of dealing with them. As always, WangWang accepted his master's orders, but since neither Nen nor the children were allowed to leave the Po Bia family ship, they were separated. On the day that the canines left for the outer tower, Yasratcha came to talk to WangWang. He mentioned how ridiculous these orders of the family were, and how WangWang was not even given the surname Po Bia, but WangWang didn't mind any of that. He was simply following his master's orders. Yasratcha told WangWang to wake up and asked him why he thought half the canines and his children were excluded from this mission. The remaining canines were to be trained under the family's rule, and his children would replace WangWang as the leader of the canines, and that WangWang would simply be abandoned by his master. The reason why they were getting rid of him was because the branch leaders were afraid of WangWang's growing powers. So Yasratcha proposed to betray the family leader first, before he did. Yasratcha planned their escape from the Po Bia family together with Nen. They thought they could escape the family's influence if they fled to the outer tower and joined FUG, as they despised the 10 great families. However, the plan would only work with WangWang, as he is the only one who could break out of the family leader's mind control. WangWang would have to betray his master to free Nen and their children. Yasratcha told WangWang that it is time he kept his promise he made to Nen. They would execute the plan in about a year, once WangWang's new child arrives at the Po Bia family ship. Later that day, Yasratcha talked with Nen and told her that WangWang seemed pretty reluctant and wasn't sure if WangWang would follow the plan. But Nen was certain that this was their only option and that WangWang would never betray her. Then, finally, a few years later, the promised day arrived. Po Bia Traumerei just returned visibly irritated from a place called The Nest. He told Kirin that he felt something he hasn't felt in a long time from a mere creature. Anyway, Kirin asked Traumerei if he should send out an army to take care of the canines that are located at the outer tower, now that WangWang's 3rd child has arrived. Traumerei, however, unexpectedly said that he would take care of it himself, as he wanted to make sure that irritating feeling was completely gone. Kirin then informed Traumerei that Yasratcha asked for an audience to discuss something about the canines. A bit later on, Nen made her way to the training camp where WangWang's children were. As promised with WangWang, Nen would escape with the children using an escape route prepared by Yasratcha. They would escape to a place to the outer tower, where they would meet up once WangWang left the Po Bia territory with Yasratcha and the canines. There they could escape the influence of the Po Bia family and finally live their lives as they saw fit. However, just as Nen started her move, a light appeared, and from the light the silhouette of the family head appeared. The family head asked how a mere creature like her dared being in his territory without his permission. Nen yelled that she came to see her children, and that as their mother she wouldn't need his permission to do so anymore. As Nen did, she attacked the family head with the power of the ancient creature Ragnarok, but to her shocking surprise, Traumerei was completely unfazed and told her how foolish she was, and there was no creature in the tower that he couldn't control. Nen couldn't control the shock on her face when one of the 7 animals that Traumerei directly controls appeared and easily defended the ancient creature's attack. When the guards that were on the training camp looked at Traumerei's creature, their eyes immediately started to melt. Traumerei told Nen that she had no right to see her kids, as they were his animals. Meanwhile, Ragnarok tried to fight off Traumerei's Shinheuh, but none of the ancient creature's attacks did any damage, as his host in Nen was too weak. In its current state, it was no match for any of the family leader's animals. Just then, Nen could hear the family leader's words. Death is easier to perform than domination. To me, death is a gift for those who aren't even worth dominating. Nen instantly knew that there was nothing she could do to stop the family head. So she begged the ancient creature to go to hide beside her children in silence, and if they were ever in danger, to protect them. So Ragnarok transformed into their gas form and made its way to Yama. Now, let's switch our focus to a place on the outer tower, the place where the canines were. Yasratcha approached WangWang as he looked onto a horde of canines. Yasratcha told him that the Po Bia family dispatched the remaining canines and that they would soon barge in here to wipe out the entire race. A bloodbath would soon occur from a battle within the same species. He told WangWang that he should use his ability to free the canines and other beastkin from the mind control of the Po Bia family and leave this place with him, and that Nen is also waiting for them. WangWang told Yasratcha that during the last year he thought a lot about whether he could live without his master, what the point of life would be if he can't follow his master. WangWang came to the conclusion that betraying his master and living on his own wasn't a life he would want to live. He also thought that if there is anything that the beastkin wanted, he could just ask the family leader himself, and that the family head would listen to him and take care of all their needs. Yasratcha yelled at WangWang that his loyalty was meaningless, and that the family head doesn't even think of him as a human, and that it was already too late for them. A few days earlier, when Yasratcha asked for an audience with the family head, he told them that WangWang and Nen were secretly plotting to betray the Po Bia family, and how Nen was planning to escape with their children. Yasratcha told Kirin and the family head that they could take care of Nen however they wanted, but to let him handle WangWang. WangWang became angry when he heard the truth, as Yasratcha lies would put Nen and their children in danger, but Yasratcha simply didn't care, as all he wanted, all he ever wanted, was to take WangWang away from his master so that they could go on a journey again. Yasratcha knew that WangWang would be labeled as a traitor and would have to run away. Yasratcha called WangWang a foolish and devoted dog, and himself a selfish cat, and noted that neither of them could overcome their instincts. When suddenly a bright light appeared above their heads, the teleportation device which connected this area with the Po Bia mothership started to operate, and then the family head, Po Bia Tromarai, appeared. The family head appeared right above WangWang and Yasratcha, but next to him there was the lifeless body of Nen. When WangWang saw his loved one impaled by a spear next to his beloved master, WangWang let out an incredible roar, like a wild beast. Tromarai just looked down at him and said, "In the end, you are baring your teeth at me too, dog. I knew you would betray me. You're just no different from the others. They all leave me when they fall in love, so that's where your loyalty ends too." WangWang in response started to cry. He couldn't believe his master would say such a thing, as much as he couldn't believe that he did something that disappointed his master. Tromarai said that after all those years he didn't want to kill WangWang himself, even if he bared his teeth at him. So Tromarai used his incredible anima powers to control every canine around and ordered them to attack their own leader, WangWang. But even after losing his loved one, WangWang was still terribly afraid of the thought that he might have done something wrong to his master. He asked how his master could simply kill the woman he loved, and if he didn't think about his feelings when he did it. WangWang also asked if Tromarai would kill his children as well, with Tromarai responding back, "What difference will it make if I know how some insignificant creature would feel? Did you expect me to show love and mercy, and that to a mere dog?" That was the moment when WangWang realized that Yasratcha was always right. WangWang always believed that if his master knew how loyal he was, his master would never harm WangWang or his loved ones. But to the family head, the beastkins, the canines, Nen, and even WangWang himself were nothing more than creatures he could control and toss aside if he felt like it. So WangWang, who wished for nothing more than to serve his master, WangWang, who lost his loved one, WangWang, who heard his master say that he didn't care about his feelings, WangWang, who felt conflicted between his loyalty and rage towards his master, WangWang, who asked his master one final question: "How should I face my death for you to have mercy on my children and the canines?" Tromarai told WangWang that he would allow them to live if WangWang would let himself be attacked from every single canine in the area. He said, "Die with as many scratches on your body as their number, then I will show mercy as you wish." Yasratcha told WangWang that that is insane, but WangWang accepted the proposal of the family head and told Yasratcha to attack him too to save himself. WangWang told Yasratcha that now that he lost his loved one and his master, there was no point in continuing living. He said that he is simply living and dying by his instinct, but that Yasratcha was different, that his instinct is selfish, and to attack him to finally set himself free from his obsession with WangWang that was tying him down. He told him to live by his instinct and be himself, be free. WangWang then proceeded to let himself be stabbed by every single canine. Traumarai was content with the outcome and told WangWang that all that was left for him to do was to die and he would keep his promise. WangWang begged Yasratcha to finish him off and asked him for a favor. He told Yasratcha that there were 3 fangs inside his heart. He asked Yasratcha to give each of his 3 children one of these fangs, as they seemed to be the power that made WangWang immune to mind control and wanted his children to never have to obey anyone else. However, Yasratcha had spent so much time with him and simply couldn't do it, so he walked away. But then he suddenly stopped moving away from WangWang and instead approached him. That was when Yasratcha realized that he was no longer in control over his own body and that Traumarai used his incredible power to control Yasratcha to kill WangWang. And so, without any way for Yasratcha to escape from Po Bia Traumarai's will and no control over his own body, he was forced to kill the only person who ever meant anything to him. Afterwards, Traumarai left and told Yasratcha that he was now free to leave the family and do whatever he wanted. After Traumarai left, Yasratcha told the canines that although WangWang offered them survival and freedom, they still committed an unforgivable sin for killing WangWang and vowed to kill everyone and erase their names from history. Using one of the fangs he took from WangWang, Yasratcha made the canines slaughter each other, and he killed many canines himself. He just kept killing and killing so that he could erase every last trace of what had happened. Shortly after that, the Baylord brothers, Doom, Yama and Paul, tried to escape and run away from their training camp. Doom, being the oldest brother, took responsibility to escape while protecting his 2 younger brothers. In the middle of their escape, the 3 Baylord brothers got caught by Yasratcha. He then implemented 2 of the 3 fangs he got from WangWang onto Doom and Yama, but also inserted fear into them and made sure that all future canines would be bound by that fear and could not defile his power. Doom promised that the canines would hide forever and would never bother Yasratcha ever again. However, Yasratcha kept one of the fangs to himself. Thanks to its power, Yasratcha gained the ability to create a new race called the Felines. Yasratcha used his freedom and new powers to travel across the tower and gained subordinates. Eventually, Yasratcha joined Zahard's army and gained the position of a squadron commander. Meanwhile, Doom hid the truth from his younger brothers, and Yama and Paul grew up without knowing their dark past. Over time, Doom, Yama and Paul all became high rankers and Doom was considered their leader. They followed Doom's leadership due to his natural talent for leading a pack. Doom used his special power to artificially create new canines by turning humans or other species into canines, and eventually created their own army. As time went by, Yama became increasingly more annoyed about Doom's attitude, method and leadership. Doom became very irresponsible and never cared for the canines. To Doom, they were nothing more than a disposable army. This army consisted of canines who were created thanks to Doom's powers, and eventually grew so big that Doom never felt like he had to train. Furious and tired with Doom's laziness and his incapability to lead the pack, Yama decided to improve his strength by training alone endlessly every day to become the strongest of the canines in order to protect the pack. Over time, Yama's influence grew bigger and factions started to build, but mysteriously, 3 of Yama's most loyal rankers committed suicide within the span of a year. Another one of Yama's subordinates, a ranker by the name Kato, suspected that Doom was behind those suicides as he wanted to keep Yama in check. Kato claimed that Doom had no right to be the leader of the canines anymore and pleaded to Yama to replace him as the leader, but Yama had no interest in leading the canines. However, a problem arose when an elder from FUG took interest in Doom's power. FUG wanted Doom to become a new Slayer, but Yama feared this idea because he knew that the canine people would only become living sacrifices for FUG's goals. Tensions eventually increased between Yama and Doom. after Doom killed several of Yama's servants when they showed rebellious traits. At first, Yama tried to tolerate Doom's action, but Yama lost his patience when Doom used his power of mind control on Katu and ordered him to kill himself. When Yama felt his power finally surpassed Doom's, he decided to take control and become the new leader of the Canines. Yama initiated the first Canine Civil War, along with the Canine people who followed him and challenged Doom and Paul for leadership over the pack. It was a long, grueling fight between Yama and Doom, which left most of the Canines dead. Surprised with Yama's growth, Doom tried to negotiate with Yama, but Yama decided to use his power of full transformation. Yama's secret power turned the tides of the war, and he was finally able to beat his older brother. However, even after Doom's defeat, Yama was left with a huge problem. He did not have the ability to share the Canines' power to other species, like Doom did, and the damage from the war with Doom and Paul had also killed most of the Canines. Leaving the Canines on the brink of extinction without Doom to share his power, left with no other choice, Yama did not kill Doom because he needed his special power to create Canines and just sealed him deep below in an underground facility of the cage after he ripped Doom's heart out. Paul was kicked out and exiled by Yama from the cage. Yama decided to ask FUG and the workshop for help and promised he would lend his power to their gods and become their new slayer. In exchange, Yama asked them to create a special device that could harness Doom's power in order to create a new generation of the Canine people. Unlike Doom, Yama did not use Doom's power to create Canine people as sacrifices to become soldiers of FUG, but he created artificial and soulless combat dogs as replacement. Yama also created a lie about him being the source of the power of the Canines to maintain peace. If you really wish to surpass me, then leave this place. Leave and return as a demon. Arie Hon. White, the 10th Slayer of FUG, is one of the most important, intriguing and feared characters in the entire tower. So join me as I dive deeper into His Majesty's history in part 8 of my Tower of God history series. I am Dennis, and as always, don't forget to like and subscribe, and now let's start. The story of White starts at the palace of the Arie family, one of the 10 great families. The head of the family is Arie Hon, and it is said that he is the strongest among the great warriors. His territory is the largest of the 10 families, and he is famous for giving special tests to regulars who have managed to reach the 100th floor. Whoever passes his test gets an extraordinary reward, but the level of difficulty of his tests is so high that most regulars don't even dare to take them. To this date, only 2 people have ever managed to pass his tests, one of which is his own daughter, and the other was the Irregular Yurek Magino, whom I will talk about in more detail in the next part of this video series. Anyway, when a young Joaquin heard that his father, the family head Arie Hon, came to the palace, he rushed to see him. Joaquin told the family head how his dream is to become an even greater swordsman than he is. This amused the family head, and he told his son to follow him as there was something he wanted to show him. The place they went to was at a great altar where the mighty Arie sword was displayed. Joaquin couldn't hide the excitement on his face when he saw the Arie sword from up close, as he wasn't chosen to be part of the main family's training squad yet. He was not allowed to leave the castle and only ever saw the sword through the castle's windows. Joaquin told his father that he will definitely come back here someday. Arie Hon then started to talk about his floor and his clan, how they create buildings and sing songs for him, about how only the Ha and the Khun families can compare themselves to the great Arie sword. He looked his young son in the eyes and said, "No matter how hard you try, it is impossible for you to surpass your father here. From the servants, wives and countless sons of the Arie family, their flesh, bones and blood have gathered to create the one and only Arie blade. And above all of this, I, your father, tower as the ruler. Son, if you wish to become part of this sword, grow and sacrifice yourself in my arms. However, if you really wish to surpass me, then leave this place. Leave and return as a demon." Years later, Joaquin was selected for the training squad of the Arie family. However, not long after that, he was visibly distraught when one of the servants of the main family came to talk to him. Joaquin told this servant that his father had changed, and how the look in his father's eyes changed from when he was first selected. Joaquin said that he felt genuine warmth in his father's gaze when he got selected, but now he just feels a scary coldness, just like before he got selected. Joaquin thought that this change in his father's eyes was due to him not meeting his father's expectations, and that no matter how hard he tried, it was never good enough, and he would never get the acknowledgement from his father he craved so much. Joaquin felt like he was trapped in ice whenever he saw the change in his father's eyes. The servant, however, told Joaquin that his father had not changed. The servant said that to someone with the sense of time as the family had, their existence felt like nothing more than little bugs just passing by, which is why the servant was sure that Joaquin couldn't possibly have made the family head change. He added that if anything has changed, it was probably Joaquin himself. This made Joaquin think about how no matter what, he could never be able to get the praise from his father he so desperately craved, and he snapped and killed the servant. Joaquin started to feel resentment towards his father afterwards. This feeling, alongside his desire to become stronger and make his father acknowledge him, led to Joaquin finding a spell that would grant him the power to eat or consume souls, which in return would make him stronger. Afterwards, Joaquin wandered around for days, not knowing where he was, when he found the place where the great Arie sword was. To a tired Joaquin, it sounded like the waves of Shinsu that were crushing against this magnificent sword were saying to him, "O son of the sword, poor thing, you tried to reach the sword, but your impatience rather kept you away from it. You sinned against the world. Now, as punishment, you will be thirsty for life and feel empty without being able to fill it." But Joaquin didn't care, as he felt a painful thirst from birth anyway. But what made him feel terribly sad was the fact that it wasn't the great sword that spoke to him, but rather the waves of Shinsu that crashed against the sword. And no matter what, he could not overcome his thirst for more power. This was until he encountered his brother Vicente in a forest. Vicente was very similar to Joaquin, as he too wished for nothing more than to become a swordsmaster on par with the family had. He received a sword from his father and swung it faster and stronger than anyone else from his age group. The stronger he got, the stronger the sword became, to the point where Vicente felt like he had become the sword itself. Nonetheless, the most beautiful and powerful sword he had ever seen was still his father's, and no matter how much Vicente trained, he could not become a shining sword like his father, and also felt like he could never get his father to look at him. Anyways, let's get back to Vicente's meeting with Joaquin. When Joaquin encountered Vicente in the forest, he asked him why he was there, with Vicente responding that he was meditating, as reading a book while listening to the waves of Shinsu helps him relax. Vicente then asked Joaquin if he would like to talk with him, seeing as they randomly met. The two brothers sat down on a platform in front of the great Arie sword and talked about how that sword is the goal of every swordsman in the Arie family. Vicente asked Joaquin if that was the reason why he was always on edge, as Joaquin was already one of the strongest of his generation, but always seemed restless and anxious. In contrast, Vicente was someone who always seemed in control of his emotions. Joaquin started to talk about his growing thirst for more power and how he also felt another emotion grow alongside it, his fear, because he felt like their father's strength was different and wasn't built up by so much greed, and how if Joaquin continued the way he was up till now, he won't ever be able to get a hold of the power he so desperately desired. Vicente stopped Joaquin and told him that he wasn't the only one that felt this way, as every member of the Arie family felt the same pain, which is why Vicente also used the same soul-eating spell as Joaquin, and perhaps acquired the ability to increase his power that way even before Joaquin did. Vicente then asked Joaquin if they should work together to find a way to surpass their father. Vicente and Joaquin searched together with their three siblings Enne, David and Albelda, who felt the same way as them, for a way to surpass their father. Then one day, right before they were supposed to start their climb of the tower as regulars, Joaquin had a dream of a demon who offered him unimaginable power if Joaquin would betray his siblings and become a god or slayer for FUG. Once Joaquin woke up, there was a spell right in front of him. Joaquin told his siblings that he found a way to surpass their father using an old spell that was left behind by an ancient demon. Together they studied the spell and eventually found a way to combine their souls. However, what Joaquin didn't tell his siblings was that he made a deal with the demon, which would allow his consciousness to be the center. Once they combined their souls, a new being was officially born. That being later became known as the legendary slayer, His Majesty White. Next to nothing is known about the time when White was a regular, but once White officially became a Slayer for FUG, he gained the position of High Ranker. He was feared throughout the tower as he committed multiple mass slaughters and other heinous crimes. He also gained a large following of worshippers, who used to paint blood next to their eyes to look like him, and for a while that look became the symbol of rebels throughout the tower. At one point in time, White killed a corrupt king in an area on the outer tower. That king was a lazy and rotten ruler, and everyone hated him. When White slit the rotten king's throat, he was celebrated and the citizens of that kingdom made him their new king. White acted like a good king and looked after the poor and executed any greedy officials of the kingdom, and the surrounding lands bowed before his might, and the citizens sang of his greatness. A long time after that, he made his most loyal follower the next king and disappeared. After that, the people recorded his name in their myths and worshipped and prayed to him like a god. White kept an eye on that land for a very long time, but as the land became more and more powerful, arrogant kings and rulers appeared. The more those arrogant rulers satisfied their own greed, the more people suffered from hunger and starvation. They once again acted like the corrupt king whom White killed long ago. So White gathered the poor and created yet another country without revealing his identity. He spoke of the old him as corrupt and that the old kingdom needed to be overthrown. He grew the new kingdom to a point where it threatened the other one. Ultimately, the two kingdoms that White created ended up resenting each other and an endless war was the result. All the two kingdoms grew to know was hatred and pain for one another. There were times when there were peace attempts, but each time White made sure that the wars would continue by killing a hero from one kingdom in the name of the other, or by raping and slandering innocent women, or by using the most efficient method, using the two countries' belief in him. Whenever White saw signs of peace, he would appear before them and say, "My beloved ones, fight for your god against these demons." White planned the whole scenario from the start and spent so much time creating these situations in order for him to suck up all the souls of those who died in the wars. In the end, nearly 1 billion people died, and White described the taste of those souls, filled with desperation, torment and rage, as the ultimate taste. However, after repeatedly mass murdering civilians in the tower, a princess of Zahard could no longer tolerate White's heinous deeds and ultimately defeated him, and he disappeared somewhere in the tower, and everyone wondered if maybe he had died. Many of his followers attempted to discover the truth and tried to resurrect him, but none were successful, because the reality was that White didn't actually die while fighting the princess of Zahard. The truth was that after the incident, he fled into the Hell Train, as that was a protected area where rankers couldn't find him, but White lost control and could no longer stay in his current form. So he used a spellbook which would split his body back into 5 parts on the Hell Train until it was time for His Majesty's resurrection. Now, I would like to take the time to talk about 5 adventurers who frequently took the tests on the Hell Train, but before that, I should probably mention that the Hell Train has changed a bit since I talked about it for the first time during part 2 of this video series. I mentioned how the Hell Train was initially created by the workshop as a training facility for Zahard and his companions during their initial climb of the tower. But when Zahard became the king of the tower and implemented the ranking system, the Hell Train became an infamous special testing area for D-rank regulars. Before entering through the doors of the Hell Train, regulars had to insert their express ticket into a slot, which causes the doors to open, letting the regular inside the train. The express ticket cannot be bought and must be stolen from another regular by any means necessary. A regular who has a ticket is called the ticket holder or ticketer. Once a regular has one ticket, they become a target. Ticket holders must defend their tickets from random regulars who will try to steal it. Because there are only 100 tickets available, many regulars have lost their lives from countless fighting and deadly competition. Due to this extremely high difficulty, it's nearly impossible for ordinary regulars to survive until the end of the line. Anyway, back to the 5 adventurers I wanted to talk about. The defender Arca Williams, the scout Daniel Hatchett, the fisherman Boro, the wave controller Sachi Faker, and the lightbearer Rowan. The 5 of them initially got on the train, each with their own goals, but the more time went by, the closer they got, and eventually took the tests on the Hell Train to meet each other. At one point in time, and roughly 600 years before Baam entered the tower, they boarded the Hell train, but when the doors of the train opened, the 5 friends encountered Joaquin, who simply smiled and said, "Since you guys seem interesting, I will give you a chance. Will you become my underlings?" Rowan became annoyed with his attitude and asked if he was looking down on them because he was from the 10 great families or something. She told Joaquin that he would surely die on the train if he continued to act that way, as she has seen many children of the 10 families die in vain on the Hell train. Joaquin stayed calm and told her that he is going to be at a higher place than the 10 families' descendants, as he has come to the train to regain his old power and get his title of a FUG Slayer back. Due to his aura and overwhelming strength, the regulars that boarded the train became his subordinates. Even though the 5 friends were against the idea of following him, they had to become part of his group in order to survive the train. Then one day, disaster struck when everyone on the train was working for Joaquin. Daniel walked in on Rowan, who had just killed someone. When Daniel asked why she killed someone, Rowan was in visual distress. She told Daniel that she had no choice, as Joaquin forced her into this situation. She begged Daniel to not tell anyone of what had happened. Daniel promised her that he wouldn't tell anyone. However, Rowan, who had always been bright and cheerful, started to change afterwards. She became quiet and would often space out. The first to notice her change in behavior was Sachi, but even after he noticed it, he couldn't approach her, as he felt like there was nothing he could do to help her. The only one who truly stood by her side and supported her was Daniel. Her secret eventually got revealed and the rest of her friends started to resent her a little. However, the 5 friends eventually found one of Joaquin's spellbooks, which revealed a bit of Joaquin's past and how he used his position as a leader on the train to force other regulars to kill each other, as he wanted to consume their souls, to make himself strong enough to reunite with the souls of his siblings and become one entity again, to become the devilish slayer White again. In the book, it was written that White could no longer exist in their current form. The exact words in the book were, "I can no longer support this body. We should split my body into 5 parts through this seal and leave 4 of the clones on the train for resurrection in the future. The spell will be complete when I return and I shall regain my whole power. But if even one more spirit mingles into the seal, the spell will fail and our souls will be sealed in the train forever. Therefore, we shall trick the people on the train into killing each other." With this, they finally found a way to get rid of Joaquin if they could somehow manage to lure him into the seal and force the spell to activate. The night before they planned to seal Joaquin away, Rowan told Daniel that she made a decision and would sacrifice her life to seal Joaquin away. But before that, she wanted to confess her true feelings to Daniel. She told him, "Daniel, I like you. I wanted to tell you for so long, but I couldn't with everyone else around. I like you, Daniel. Boro, Akka, Sachi, I like them all, but I like you the best. So Daniel, if I give my life to seal Joaquin tomorrow, it's probably because I love you. You're short, grumpy and not exactly charming, but you won my heart over when you accepted me, even at my worst. I like that you are always such a softie with me. So Daniel, even if I die tomorrow, you can't resent or hate anyone, because it's you that I'm dying for. I love you, Daniel. Thank you. This is the first time that I have these feelings. Right now, I'm so in love that I don't even fear death." The next day, Akka and Daniel were able to lure Joaquin into a room using the spellbook they found as bait and provoked him. Annoyed at their attitude towards him, Joaquin went for an attack. However, Boro, who was anticipating his attacks, managed to deflect them. Just then, Joaquin noticed that a magic pattern had appeared on the floor. Thanks to Sachi's ability to use spells, the adventurers were able to decipher the seal and use it to their advantage. In the center of the seal stood Rowan, ready to give her life to seal Joaquin within the train forever. Until that very moment, none of her friends dared to say a word about who would be sacrificed. But in some way, they were all expecting Rowan to stand there, as if it was an obvious decision. They all believed that a sacrifice had to be made for them to live. Thanks to Rowan's sacrifice, Joaquin was sealed. Daniel, Boro, Akka and Sachi were the only survivors left on the train. However, they were all unable to move past the incident and Rowan's sacrifice, so they all roamed around the train station. with Sachi becoming a ticket hunter, Aka, who gathered powerful allies to challenge the train again, Boro, who became a mentor for new regulars challenging the train, and Daniel, who could not live on with the guilt of surviving while the girl he loved was dead. Which is why roughly 400 years after the horrifying events on the Hell Train, Daniel went on the train again and almost lost his life as well. But someone rescued him. That someone was Joaquin, who could not leave the train. Joaquin promised Daniel that he would resurrect Rowan if he in return would help Joaquin break free of the spell that tied him to the train and get his power back. What fun would it be to become the king of the tower? Tell Zahard to keep his boring seat. I will get out of the tower. Outside the tower there exists a vast world with rolling skies stretching endlessly and countless stars illuminate the darkness. A place that is 1,000 times, no, 1,000,000,000 times wider and freer than the tower. Once you imagine that such a world exists, don't you think all those things you want are also trivial? Yuri Zahard. As an irregular and one of the founders of one of the most influential organizations within the tower, Wolhaik-song, Yuri Zahard is one of the most unique and strongest people inside the tower. But before I begin to talk about his past, I would like to say that a lot of the information about Yurek and his past come from old blog posts from SIU, which means that a lot of the details might actually never be shown in the webtoon or might be different in the future if SIU ever decides to tell his story. So keep that in mind for this video, but with that out of the way, join me as I dive deeper into the history of Yurek Zahard and Wolhaik-song in part 9 of my Tower of God history series. I'm Dennis and as always, don't forget to like and subscribe. And now, let's start. As I just mentioned, Yuri Zahard is an irregular who, according to a blog post of SIU, followed Phantaminum into the tower. He was the first known irregular since Zahard and his companions, who climbed the tower in an official way as a regular. At one point during his climb, he entered the Hell Train and met the God of Guardians, who used to train Zahard and the other great warriors during their initial climb of the tower. However, unlike Zahard and the rest, Yurek did not train with the God of Guardians, as his power was already greater than that of the God of Guardians. Yurek easily cleared all the tests on the Hell Train and got access of the hidden floor, where he could leave a trace of his current self. However, Yurek was so powerful that his data version could not exist in a stable condition. Seeing a non-perfect version of himself made Yurek angry, so much so that he smashed the mirror that is used for saving their data on the hidden floor. This caused a lot of anomalies, instability and errors on the hidden floor, like certain data humans realized that they were not real and lived in a data world and gained some level of consciousness. After smashing the mirror, Yurek continued his climb. At one point in time he heard rumors of a unique forest where he met a man called Baek Ryun, whom I want to talk about for a bit. Baek Ryun was born in the middle area as an orphan. Eventually he went into a forest to avoid contact with others and lived there for a long time. He naturally learned to control Shinsu while he was living in the forest. Later, Hiden became interested in Baek Ryun's abilities and picked him to become a regular. Nothing is known about his time as a regular. However, while he did quickly become a ranker, he returned to his forest immediately afterwards. It is said that he is the most gifted wave controller in the tower's history. He spent a long time looking after the forest, which has been said was emitting a mysterious atmosphere, which brings us back to his meeting with Yurek Zahard, who was climbing the tower at the time. The two quickly became best friends. Baek Ryun was especially interested in the world outside the tower that Yurek often spoke of. Hearing Yurek's stories, Baek Ryun himself dreamed of living in the world outside of the tower. Yurek then continued his climb and took a special test on the 100th floor. As mentioned in the previous part, Arie Hon, the head of the Arie family, offered regulars a special test with an extraordinary reward. But the level of difficulty is so high that most of the regulars don't even dare to take them. Yurek, however, accepted the test, which was to survive the attacks of Arie Hon for 10 minutes. And not only did Yurek survive the attacks, but he fought evenly against the strongest family head. Afterwards, Arie Hon said, Yurek Zahard is much better. This made Yurek one of the most famous beings in the tower. Yurek then finished his climb and became the fastest person of all time to become a ranker. For comparison, very skilled rankers like Sung Yu and Yuri Zahard took roughly 200 to 300 years to climb the tower, while it took Yurek only 50 years to do so. And speaking of Yuri, while it has not been revealed when or how, she did become relatively close friends with Yurek. Anyway, Once Yurek became a ranker, he received ownership of the 77th floor from Arie Hon as a reward for beating his test. Yurek then went to visit his friend Baek Ryun, whose desire to see the world outside the tower only grew bigger since he and Yurek last met. Baek Ryun told Yurek about his wish when they met again, which made Yurek very happy, as he was looking for a way back to the outside world, and he asked his friend if he would like to live with him. But Baek Ryun declined the offer, saying that he could not leave the forest, which was like his own life. Yurek drunkenly responded back by saying, "Then I will give this forest a pair of wings. I will make it so that these trees can follow you everywhere." After saying that, he shouted as loud as thunder, and the enormous forest shrunk to the size of a fist. Yurek then put the compressed forest in a box with wings and gifted it to Baek Ryun. Baek Ryun was very surprised and grateful. However, there was a problem. The compressed forest was too heavy for Baek Ryun to carry, so Baek Ryun gave the box to Yurek to look after. This winged box became a symbol of the friendship between Yurek and Baek Ryun, and the two formed the organization known as Wolhaek-song or Wing Tree, and ranker who heard the stories of Yurek and Baek Ryun joined them in their goal of getting out of the tower. It was decided that Baek Ryun would act as the leader. Together they went to the 77th floor, and Yurek transferred the ownership of that floor to Baek Ryun. There, Baek Ryun and Wolhaek-song planted his forest, which would also serve as their headquarters. Although not officially a member of Wolhaek-song, Yuri Zahard was one of the many rankers who was present during the planting of the forest. During one point in time, Yurek went to the floor of death, where he met Garam Zahard and immediately fell head over heels for her. He confessed his love for her on numerous occasions, but she brutally turned him down each time, filled with the pain of a broken heart after one of his failed confession attempts. Yurek wandered around the floor of death for a bit and met Hell Joe, whom I already talked about in part 4 of this video series. The two talked for a while, as Hell Joe was happy to finally meet someone from outside the floor of death, and Yurek was happy to have someone he could talk to about his failed love life. Hell Joe told Yurek about his dream of getting everyone out of the floor of death, and this resonated with Yurek, who is trying to get out of the tower. Yurek was fascinated by Joe's grand dream and gave him a powerful monster in order to fulfill that dream. Yurek then left the floor of death again, with Yurek being an incredibly strong Irregular and acting as the second in command of Wolhaek-song. He gained rank 4 within the tower, and Baek Ryun gained rank 9. There was a time when Yurek, who had complained about his rank being lower than Phantaminum's, broke into the ranking administration office and threatened them to raise his rank. When Yurek asked the ranking administration office, "Have you ever seen me fight Phantaminum?" they answered briefly and without hesitation, "You would be the loser." Yurek Magino, shocked, could not do anything but go home bitterly.